Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. I'm going to try to make this a little short and sweet because I don't exactly have a whole lot of thoughts on this. And as you can see right behind me, there's literally food right there that I would like to get into. So we're going to get into this. I went and checked this out today. We traveled a little further out than usual to see this because there was only certain theaters that were playing this. So, I was kind of curious. So here we are. So that film I went to check out was Sentimental Value, which was co-written and directed by Joachim Trier, if you can say his name. He's best known for movies such as Thelma, also a film called Louder Than Bombs, the documentary called co-directed a documentary called The Other Bunch, or The Other Munch. Other films such as Oslo, August 31st, and more notably, a film called The Worst Person in the World, which starred Renate Renesh, who also stars in this film. This is also co-starring Stellan Skarsgård and Ella Fanning. And as the story goes, this tells a story of a family endeavor about two sisters and their father. Their estranged father because, or their distant father because the father of these two sisters, he is a filmmaker, and he is, at least at one point or another, was a notable filmmaker, but he's been rather absent for quite some time. And the sisters have taken up in the film world in some form or another, one of which our main focus being that of Nora. She is a stage actress, whereas the other did take up in acting, but had decided to pursue a more normal livelihood with a kid and a husband. And the father comes back into the picture because the mother had passed away due to an illness. And as they are getting to know each other again, the two daughters with their father. The father approaches the daughter, who is still in acting, with a new script, a new idea, and there's hesitations at first to wanting to read it and partake in it. And the story presents three distinctions in perspective, through the two sisters and the father, and how they are all how they all personally reconcile with the fractured family that they have, and throughout, as the film illustrates, specifically in this household, the specific house that they live in, how that has also been a factor over time, and how they find their ways towards forgiveness and healing itself. So, on paper, what it is, I think that there's some interesting conversations to be had. And I'm interested in the filmmaker as well. He's done some interesting pieces. The Worst Person in the World being the only one I've seen of his, but there's other films of his that I've heard about that I was kind of interested in. I swear, could be wrong, but I'll just check real quick. I believe he also directed The Souvenir, which I'm kind of curious to see. He apparently did not do that film, so I forget what I said. I thought he directed that film, but I guess he didn't. But from my memory of The Worst Person in the World, I do remember enjoying it, and I think that in terms of a character, what this actress is playing, she's kind of playing a very similar part where she is dealing with a person that is kind of more or less in free fall. She's doing all sorts of stuff, but she's doing it in the manner of distraction, trying to help herself, and not exactly confronting the real issues that are at play. And in this, it's very similar, but it's more personal in that it is a direct confrontation. It's more of a direct thing. In that it's the father and what is making her, reluctant or very spontaneous in nature. And then we see the father's point of view of why he does the things that he is doing, why he wrote the script, why is it so important for him now to make this film. So it tries to flesh these things out, and it does, and it gives you, I think, a very carefully plotted narrative. It chooses very carefully what information to tell you or not tell you. And it's portrayed just, I think, very well with this ensemble of performances here. I think all of them do a very solid job. But I think that what comes down to Sentimental Value is not necessarily what it's about, because I think in terms of a thematic exploration, I think it can become rather redundant and very noticeably simplistic, because it's frank in terms of what's happening. It's frank in terms of what the problem is when it comes to this dynamic or this trio. We understand what the problem is, and more or less being a problem for one of these people and not necessarily for all of them. But that fractured relationship, that whole exploration of fractured relationships, kind of in some ways, kind of a very frank illustration through visualizations. Like there's a point that the movie makes about there being a crack in the house, and it's meant to kind of further illustrate that fractured ideology, or that feeling of feeling fractured or feeling fragmented, as the film almost in some ways kind of acts as so, because it's like pieces of, that the film wants to explore, not where it just kind of goes from beginning to end. There's little segments, and then there's little black cuts here and there, almost kind of to highlight again that sort of fragmented and fractured sort of mindset. So it's got those sort of things going for it, but I think in terms of a thematic approach, or in terms of just that exploration of it, I do believe, though, it is rather simplistic. It's pretty frank as to what it is about, and as the length of its time plays out, those ideas don't feel as much as heft, as much as more just more or less just the foundation, but not getting deeper, into that foundation. What makes Sentimental Value valuable is how it tells that story and how it holds itself. That's what it makes it a worthwhile experience. And you get very solid performances to supply it. I think a screenplay, which I've said very carefully plots out, and makes sure to keep certain information at hold while keeping other information very, and in terms of just like characters, just with these characters, there's certain things that you get to know about later with certain characters that leave some kind of emotional impact. But I do believe, though, that thematic study is a little bit thin in terms of just what it is about, because of just the frankness in its approach. But it's compelling, it's investing, and it's a lot of it done by just its pure craftsmanship and by the performances that are there. So I think that there is a compelling craftsmanship there. I think that the aura that is made, I think, is rather investing. And the way that it is plotted out, I think, does lead to some emotional impact. And you have good performances there to follow. But a lot of it is, again, by how I said, it is how it is being told. It's not necessarily what is being told, but it's more or less how it is being told that I think what drives it home and gives you something of some satisfaction when you walk out. So even though you are you know very much so what the film is trying to explore here, it's not trying to be subtle or trying to be secretive or whatever like that. But I do believe, though, that thematic quality it does become a little bit dry at some points, but because of just, I think, by pure length, I think that the ideas kind of play themselves out. But also lots of good elements here to supply it and to keep you fairly invested and fairly intrigued. So there's my thoughts on Sentimental Value. I thought it was good. I don't think it's great, but I think it's good. There's some good things there, and mostly held up by its performances, all of which I thought were pretty good. So those are my thoughts on Sentimental Value. You guys, let me know your thoughts on Sentimental Value. If you guys have seen it, your guys' thoughts on this filmmaker, Joachim. What do you say his name? Joachim Tier, I think they say his name. Apologies if I butchered it. Let me know if I should see any other films of his. I'd be curious to see more of his. I think he's definitely interesting. I wouldn't say great, but good as it stands. But let me know all your thoughts related in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.